Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. No shorts allowed in this heat? Sure. My office has quite a casual dress code policy and in general kinda chill about what we wear. However, we are not allowed shorts. So in the UK here we get about 5 hot days a year that we get to enjoy/endure. One of my colleagues got an HR email a while ago for wearing shorts in the office. He has great legs, who could blame him, when the weather was sweltering. The women in the office wear short skirts and dresses and showing shoulders all the time without any bat of an eye, and yay for them, but somehow shorts in men are just no-no. Oh well, I'm not commuting in 30+ degrees Celsius in jeans. I'm very proudly queer, but I have never worn a skirt before, but I bought some fabulous skirts and wore them twice to work since. Once just to a regular office day, and then last Friday when we had a summer party. No one has spoken to me about my wardrobe choice yet, but my legs were so free. Some male colleagues told me they are inspired and we might see more skirts in the office when it gets warm again. Edit: yes, I know kilts are a thing, but they're heavy and woolly and absolutely wouldn't be nice in the heat. Next story. We don't do refunds here. I was racing between things one day, and didn't have much time for lunch. At the time McDonald's wasn't absurdly expensive, and one was on the way to my next stop, so I decided to hit the drive-thru up so I could eat on the way. I placed my order for a medium McThing and got asked if I wanted a large, which most McDonald's don't do anymore, and I said no. When I got to the window to pay, the price seemed high, which I thought was odd, but maybe I just did the mental math on the taxes wrong or misremembered the price of the item. And then the cashier didn't hand me a receipt. Weird as well, but whatever. When I got to the window to receive my food, it all clicked as they handed me a large, which I politely declined as I really had zero interest in paying $2 for a few more fries and soda. At this point the manager appeared and stated, "We don't do refunds here." That was when I realized what was going on. Having worked fast food before, they were probably doing some sort of upcharge competition, ring up the most larges and you/that manager get a reward. I was slightly flabbergasted, but the manager repeated that nope, no possibility of a refund. I politely smiled and said, "That's okay. I'll call my bank on speaker to do a chargeback. I'll need you to talk to them. Since it's on speaker, you can just tell them you can't do refunds." And then proceeded to sit at the window, calling my bank, during lunch hour at a very busy drive-thru. Turns out they can do refunds, and they can do them so fast I didn't even make it through the phone tree. And yes, I did file a complaint with corporate, but it's not like that actually does anything. Next story. Can't carry over one PTO day? See you in February. I worked for a 24-hour news organization. So someone needs to be in the studio at all times. As a staff monkey, I had things like PTO and vacation time, which I usually didn't use too often, but we were allowed to carry over 5 in-use day each year, as long as we used those days in the first quarter of the following year. However, the end of the year is in high demand for off time because most people needed to burn in used vacation time that couldn't carry over. Management, wisely, makes sure everyone knows the policies and schedules December well in advance so there aren't any last-minute converge issues around the holidays. Since I didn't use a lot of my PTO during the year, due to built-up comp time and OT, I generally used it the week between Christmas and New Year's and took about 10 days off around then. One particular year I had 6 days left, 1 extra day. But since I already took off the time between Christmas and New Year's already, there literally wasn't a day left for me to use as a day off, as no one was left to cover a shift if I were to take off. I went to the scheduler and management and asked for either a one-time exception to carry over the extra day and I'd take it on January 2nd, extending off time by 1 day. No go, I didn't do it with the required notice, or pay me 1 day's wages for the in-use time, also a hard no-go. Here's the malicious compliance. Since I had so much built-up PTO due to working holidays or comp time for OT work, I had a ton of other days banked. Combining my already booked holiday break with my 5 carryover days and the 10 new ones I got for the new year, plus some holidays that come in the early part of the year, I figured I was able to take enough time off that I would leave for my Christmas break on December 24th and not return until the last week of February, nearly March. And since I did it with enough notice, they couldn't deny me. They now have to cover about 2 months of my shifts. The next day I put my time off in the system and emailed the scheduler a note saying have a great holiday, I will see you in March. The day following I received a call from the VP of the department asking me what they need to do. I said simple, let me carry over my extra day, I will use it on Jan 2nd, you have almost a month to cover one shift and we're all good. I got the carryover day and used it. Next story. Can't carry overtime to the next year? Okay, that works. To add to the vacation day theme of the week. I worked at a company that had a lot of people that had worked a long time there. It was pretty common for new chemistry or chemical engineering grads to come in as their first job after college. At 20 years they got 6 weeks, 30 days of vacation. Some people liked to work and simply rolled vacation days into the next year. The max you could ever carry over was 45 days. At some point some bean counter figured out that the 45 days were a liability to the company. If you are selling a chunk of a company off and those people have 6 weeks of vacation and another 9 weeks in the bank, that's 15 weeks of time that the new owner could be on the hook for. So they decided and put out a proclamation that there would be no carryover from one year to the next. Much unhappiness swept the company. Lots of people tried to plan how they were going to use it. One of the key people I worked with came up in October and said they are going on vacation, and how much they liked working with me. Which was kind of odd, so I pressed a little on why this sounded like a forever goodbye and not a see you in a week. So I got told, under strict confidence, that they had found a new job. New job started in 2 weeks. They had enough vacation days to cover them to January 1st, and the next year's vacation and holidays covered the first 2 months of the following year. So they were done. I wished them well and they were gone. But they were not as good as I am in keeping secrets. There were suddenly a number of key people, also with 6 weeks vacation and large vacation bank that were gone. Lots of unhappy people in HR. HR could not say no to the close-out vacations since they had decreed the rollover freeze. But HR decreed, you must return to work to be able to collect the vacation in the next year. Turns out most of the people got jobs in very cool companies, they all scheduled a vacation day so they could come back to work for a day. They came back en masse. Coworkers scheduled them all into meetings, so they had things to do on the day. It was mostly a party day with an all-day food fest. As an added bonus, senior management had indeed planned to split off a division, and the sale fell through because of all the people that had bailed out. Next story. Stay until it's done. Okay, I'm doing it by the book then and getting an extra day off. I used to work as a supervisor in my last job and was directly working with a union. Some of my managers really didn't want to deal with things when it came to workplace injuries, so I had to deal with most of them. If you have worked with a union before, this is a very long and time-consuming process, while important, very tedious. So that brings us to that one evening, I was on my second double in a row of 3 and very much ready to go home. As I wrapped up my area, my evening manager texted me to assist another supervisor with an injury. The supervisor was newer and needed to be taught. I informed them I was already there on a double and needed to come back on the morning, and was there anyone else or could they help them? This manager, who was notorious for passing their work on others, he texted me no and I had to stay until it was done. Okay, I have written documentation of a directive. Who am I to say no? Alright, well then, since I'm teaching, I'm going by the book. I opened up the union and company policy on workplace incidents and followed it step by step. By the time we got to the drug test portion, the local clinic we use was closed and we needed to call it in. This is important because if you don't use the local clinic, the out-of-area one takes 4+ hours to come out. While that was processing, I did a lengthy investigation with the union. I spent the entire night going by the book, taking pictures, and documenting everything I could. By the time I finished and the drug test finished, it was 7 a.m. and my shift started in 30 minutes. This is the time the morning manager came in. They are one of my favorites and why I pick up mornings all the time. When she saw me, said, "Oh, you're in early." I said, "I never left." Her face dropped because they have a rule that while management, including supervisor, can work more than 16 hours, if they work more than 20 hours they need a 24-hour reset. I wasn't in the union but still hourly salaried and got OT over 8 hours in a day. So not only was I going to not be able to make my morning shift, I couldn't make my evening shift either. I was still gonna be paid for both while being sent home. She asked me who told me to do this, and I showed her the message from the evening manager telling me to stay until it is finished. I went home and enjoyed my extra day off into weekend. When I came back, I had an interview about the incident with the senior manager. After showing my messages, which the manager tried to delete but only did on his side, I was dismissed without any issues. The manager was written up by the senior manager, and they had to pay me my 2 regular shifts plus 24 hours of overtime. Needless to say, I stopped picking up after that no matter how much they begged. Edit, this is a throwaway. Edit 2. I may be good with union rules but apparently bad at spelling and grammar. Thank you all for the help. Next story. Take you to the ER for something I can fix for free? Okay. This is a story my dad told me a while ago about one of the outings he had with his brother-in-law, we'll call Kyle, many years ago. He didn't provide too many details, but it's just enough to share this story. For context, my dad and my uncle Kyle were very different people. My dad was very much a DIYer who learned a lot about how to try to fix things himself and what to do if something happens with tools, like nails, hammers, fishing hooks, etc. My uncle Kyle was the opposite. He was one of those people who just paid other people to do things for him or just complain when he couldn't get his way. Basically, never let other people tell him what to do if they weren't trained professionals. One day, my dad and Uncle Kyle went on a fishing trip because my mom and aunt wanted them to hang out more and get some bonding time in. They didn't really have much in common except for their wives being sisters and having kids of their own. During this, Uncle Kyle somehow managed to get a fishing hook through his thumb with the end of it poking out. Uncle Kyle started screaming and rocking the boat, yelling, "This hurts so much. Call an ambulance. Now." My dad said, I know how to get that hook out of a finger, it happened to me before. What you need to do is get a pair of pliers and cut the hook part off and pull it out of your. Kyle, I don't care. I'm injured. Take me inland, find a pay phone, and call an ambulance. Dad, are you sure? I have the tools to. Kyle, now. Dad, well, if you insist. So Dad rowed the boat to shore, found a pay phone, and my Uncle Kyle called for directions to the nearest ER. My dad drove them both there, and my dad waited patiently in the waiting room for Uncle Kyle to come out. Not 10 minutes later, Uncle Kyle came out with a bandage on his thumb and a scowl on his face, which was pretty much his resting face. Before the doctor went back to his area, my dad went up and asked him how they got the hook out. Turns out they did exactly what my dad was going to do. Cut the spikes off the end of the hook and pull the thing out slowly. The only difference was that it cost my Uncle Kyle $200 and an "I told you so" from my dad. My dad said that after that, they never did any solo trips ever again. My uncle blamed my dad for the whole ordeal, even though he was the one putting the hook on the line. He was fine, he just complained about everything. Miss you, Dad. Thanks for a fun story to share. Next story. Malicious Compliances temporarily loses £65,000. I used to work at a cash center. All the security trucks would collect cash from businesses during the day. We would open the packages, credit their accounts, and the cash would be bundled and shipped back out to banks and cash machines. I worked the night shift, and it became an unwritten rule that when you finished your work you could go. Well, one evening we had a new manager singled me out to stay and help the team who loaded the money for cash machines. Now this was a job I had never done before. I tried to ask a few questions like how much do we put in each bundle, how much should we have in each box, only to be met with an aggressive, just out the cash in the box. It's not rocket science. Okay, you're the boss. So I put the cash in the box. When the box was full, I pushed the cash down and fit even more in. I kept going until I physically could put another note in and used all my weight to close the cash box. Well, it turns out they were only supposed to contain £100,000, and the crap hit the fan when they did the last checks and they thought they were £65,000 short. They ordered a full recount of all the boxes. When the one I had packed was opened, it practically exploded. There was cash everywhere. One of the girls who worked the section was stunned you could actually fit that much in one of the boxes. I would say I had the told you so moment of being confronted, but the manager said nothing, and once the boxes were repacked I went home. I never got asked to cover that section again though. Next story. Tell me to clear the countertops. deal. I'm a stay-at-home mother. Well, mostly. I work 8 hours a week, 4 hours 2/week, I homeschool our children, run a podcast, and having a baking business. Baking brings in 20% of our income, and my 8 hours/week brings in 15% of it. I didn't want to leave my full-time job, but my husband insisted for our family. Our house is swept every night, food put away, dishes in the dishwasher, and laundry in the washing machine started. Laundry is moved to the dryer in the mornings, then immediately put away. I can't stand clutter. My husband works from home, but rarely contributes to anything household-wise, as that's my job. I love and adore my kids, and very rarely ask for his help anyway. I prefer to just keep peace and not make an issue if it's working. Now to the problem. Yesterday, I had a busy morning of making breakfast for my kids before running out of the house to work. I didn't get to move the laundry to the dryer before running out. My husband was angry when I got home because he stuck his hand in jelly on the countertop. Jelly was from the toast. He was also mad he couldn't find the polo he wanted to wear today. He has dozens of them hung in his closet, but the one he wanted to wear was in the dryer. He told me I needed to clear the countertops and make sure there's nothing left on them. Then he went into his office. I looked at the countertop and the only things on it, aside from jelly globs and sugar, was my reusable Aldi bags, his coffee cup, full, and the panini I made him for lunch. I put the Aldi bags away, poured his coffee out, washed and put away his cup, ate the panini, washed and put away the plate, and cleaned the countertops. Imagine his face when he walked back in 20 minutes later to get his coffee and panini and there wasn't anything there. I said to him, "What's the matter? You told me to clear the countertop." Then I went outside for a walk with my youngest 2 kids. Next story. Don't want to reimburse me for bottled water? My company sends everyone to training every year and it's usually for about a week. You're put up in a nice hotel and your meals for dinner are reimbursed. The hotel has breakfast in the morning and you have to eat there. Your lunch is covered by the training department and it's usually a catering company. For dinner it's common to go out and spend a lot. I don't know what the limit is, but some people have had an $80 meal and it was covered. I'm pretty simple and a sandwich would keep me happy. I've been with my company for years, but my first time there, I woke up thirsty one night and wanted some bottled water and went to the hotel lobby and bought a couple bottles of water for about $2. No big deal, it will be reimbursed or so I thought. After I got back and turned in my receipts, I got an email from some corporate lady a few days later saying that everything will be reimbursed except the bottled water. Now maybe in the email context was lost, but I asked why the water wasn't covered. A simple answer explaining that only if purchased with meal would have sufficed, but this woman said that my room should be accommodating or something like that. I don't remember verbatim what the response was, but I took it as snarky and it seemed if she wanted me to drink from the sink. Now for the MP. Fast forward a year later when I went for my annual training, the first night I went out I made sure to go to a nice steakhouse that rhymes with malt glass. In that meal I ordered not 1 but 2 large glass bottles of water to take back with me to my room. These bottles were about $17 a piece, but in the end I was reimbursed because it was purchased with my meal. Edit: many of you made comments about my guessing game, so my apologies. I don't get out too much and figured the steakhouse was more popular and this guessing game distracted away from the post. I've seen posts removed many times for naming companies. This training was in Texas and for future reference I'll make sure to clarify something was in the States so our overseas Redditors are not trying to guess. As far as bottled water goes, I lived in Lower Louisiana for a little bit and the water out of the faucet smells like rotten eggs, even before Hurricane Katrina. Many Americans have become spoiled to drinking filtered water as well and can definitely tell a difference. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel our posts.